Marcelo here, and today we're talking about the factory method. Let me know if you like it. Comments in the comment section and check the description for links. Okay, so let's talk about the factory method. Our little definition here says that this pattern is often useful in situations where a class cannot anticipate the type of objects it will need to create, or in situations where a class wants to delegate the responsibility of creating objects to one of its expert subclasses. Let's get the second part, just for that we discuss a little bit what this is about. Okay, so imagine that you have a class called animal, and all of the animals are under this class. So a duck is an animal, a bear is an animal, and a human is an animal. So whenever you do need to create an animal, instead of going for animal, you go for the subclass, and then you find out what is the animal that you want to create. So the second part of the factory is basically for you to delegate the creation of the kind of an animal to the correct animal class. Okay, that said, let's see our example here, which is more related with the real world. Basically, if we're talking about factory, one of the things that you might come up to on top of your head is a car factory, because well, they are one of the long-living factories that you have in place. Okay, so a car factory will need a car definition because, well, that's what we are trying to create. And the car definition gonna have the drive, which is basically raising not implemented error, as this is an abstract class that's gonna be used by all of the other types of car to define the drive. So this is kind of our interface here, right? So let's go for the first class, our first expert subclass that we have here, the AMG GT53, which is a Mercedes-Benz car. And if you have money, go for it because it's a good car. And when you say drive, it says, now we're talking, driving it, because it's really good. Okay, GLE is also another Mercedes car that's not so good. So why, when you say drive, it puts a meme? But why? And then that's one of the subclasses that we want to use here, one of the subclasses of cars that we want to use in our factory. So let's talk about our factory. As we have two Mercedes cars, our factory is going to be the Mercedes-Benz factory, which will have a method called create car that receives the type of the car that we want to create. And then based on the type of the car, it creates the car for you. And then we can use it as much as we want. Okay, so create car is a case switch. If you remember the strategy pattern, you can do that instead of a case switch with a hash. But for the sake of simplicity here, let's use the case switch. So the case switch only looks for the type of the car and then uses it to find out what is the specific class that you want to use to instantiate it. So AMG GT 53 will have the according class to instantiate. So you can see that we just call new on that. And GLE is the same. And if you do not have the car, it will put, well, this car isn't from Mercedes. And you're going to understand the meme that I have here right after we test it out. So summing up, we do have car that has two Mercedes car here, and then we have the Mercedes factory. So let's see, as usual, in our IRB, it working. So let's copy that and then paste in our IRB, and everything seems to be okay. So if I go for Mercedes-Benz factory.create car GLE drive, we should see, but why? And that's what we see. If we do go for our AMG GT53, we should see, now we're talking, driving it, which is basically what we want. And if we try to create a Testarossa out of the Mercedes factory, we're going to receive Testarossa isn't from Mercedes. And if my grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike. So different recipes here, Mercedes and Ferraris. Okay, so back to the code. As I said before, because we had some of the design patterns so far here, some of them might relate to this. I talked about this strategy, but let's talk about command pattern first. This kind of resembles of what a command pattern is. It's not really a command pattern, but you can understand that there is a parallel here because you are just saying to Mercedes to create one of the cars. So it's like commanding, like having a menu of cars, and then you can command Mercedes to create it. And then the second one that we can relate with is, of course, the strategy, because it seems like creating a different car, it's a different strategy of creating cars. That's not fully true. It's really something that you can make a parallel, of course, but it's not fully true because it's not a strategy of creating a car. It's just really picking up different cars, and the factory knows how to create a car. So that's why we're talking about factories here. So when you are picking different strategies, you go for a strategy pattern. And if you want to understand, or if you want to create different objects, and that's actually the key word here is the objects, then you need to have a factory because you are factoring different objects, right? So that's more or less the idea behind the differences between those three design patterns. Going back to our definition, or the first part of our definition, we are saying that this is useful in situations where a class cannot anticipate the type of objects it will need to create. Why do we do not anticipate? You might question why cannot we why we can't anticipate the type of the car that we are using in my application. So let's imagine one real scenario where this would be true. For example, if you are creating really one site where the person goes, so a selling car site that integrates to various models of cars. For example, you could have Ford, you could have Ferrari, you could have Mercedes. So the site would say, which kind of car do you want, or what are the brands that you want to look into? And let's say that I just want to see Mercedes. I do pick up Mercedes. So it will show me a list of cars in there, and then I will pick up which car I want. So let's say that I want the AMG GT53. So I pick that up, and let's say that there is the year or whatever, so that I can really go for it and decide. But as I am the user, the site cannot anticipate what the user wants, or what are the needs of the user. So there is no way to anticipate that because this is not part of the application. This is part of the demand of the application outside. So the user knows what the user wants, and we only fulfill these needs. So that's why we cannot anticipate always what we are going to be building here, but we can have different factories. So if I picked up Mercedes, it's because I want to create a car from Mercedes. Then I have a Mercedes factory, and then the Mercedes factory will have this type of car. Okay, I hope you have liked this one. So if you did, please let me know. If you have any comments or questions, go to the comment section and check the description for links. Okay, bye bye.